and welcome to the very first episode of D82 podcast for the term 2024-2025. This is where we explore the minds and stories of those who inspire, lead, and leave a lasting impact. I'm your host, Rifka, and today, to kick off the series, we have with us someone truly special. He is the Group Chief Strategy Officer of Sri Lanka's topmost diversified conglomerates and recently stepped on to one of the biggest stages in the world, World Championship of Public Speaking Finalist. And now I know you know who it is, but let me welcome our very own champion, distinguished Toastmaster, World Championship of Public Speaking Finalist, the only fourth Sri Lankan to do so, Ravi Uduwela. Welcome,
Thank you.
Ravi.
Thank you very much, Ifa. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. How are you feeling right now?
Feeling great.
Right.
Great to be back.
Wonderful. So let's dive right in, Ravi. Now that we know you on getting onto the world stage, doing so much, we have the celebrity era of Ravi happening right now. I want to go back to the beginning. A little bit about your early childhood. How was it growing up in Sri Lanka?
Well, I grew up in Kandy, born and raised in Kandy, the hills of Sri Lanka. And we belong to an era where there were no smartphones or social media, right? So it was very fun growing up, playing around with all my cousins. And I was very lucky to grow up with a lot of cousins. Why? Because my father had 6 sisters and 3 brothers. So you could imagine the number of cousins I grew up with. They call it a family, we call it a factory because there were kids popping up from everywhere. So it was really fun, playing cricket with them and a lot of festivities around. Really fun.
I think we 90s and 80s kids hang along with that factory and family upbringing. It's a happening childhood. Now that, speaking of your childhood, Ravi, I remember in your semi-final speech at the World Championship semi-finals, you mentioned that as a kid, you were very shy. You didn't even go up to the stage to collect an award that you were receiving for a very significant person. Can you elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, so actually that was based on a true story because quite a few people asked whether this was even true. So this happened way back in 1996. Were you born by then?
Yes.
All right. So 1996, as you know, was a special year for Sri Lanka, right? Sri Lanka had just won the World Cup. And just after the World Cup, there was this musical show happening at Hillwood College, Kandy. And guess who the chief guest was? Sanat Jayasuriya. And during this event, there was a raffle draw, which I won. But I didn't have the self-confidence to just walk up on stage and collect the prize from Sanat Jayasuriya. So that was the story behind this speech, or the incident behind this speech. True story.
True story. And that's unbelievable, Ravi, because it happened almost 27 years ago. My math, I'm not sure it's correct on that later, but fast forward to 2024. You're in one of the biggest stages, the World Championship Finals, and you couldn't step onto a stage at Hillwood Kandy to collect an award. How did you decide to speak about that story after all these years? Why, Ravi?
I think we all have great stories in our life. It's just that we sometimes don't dig deep enough to fetch them from our storybooks. So I think as a speaker, it's very important that we maintain story journals so that you keep writing down all the stories, all the incidents in your life, and probably sometimes a story emerges. So this happened way back in, as I said, 1996. And I decided to speak only this year, as you said, after 27 years, because sometimes there are incidents, but the relevance appears only later because, 1996, okay, you started as a shy kid, but you just can't say that incident in front of a crowd because, okay, the people will ask, so what? But after years of public speaking, after being able to step on that stage, then the story appears because then the transformation is something that you can talk about from a shy kid to now. But between now and then, it's very important that you still journal those incidents because sometimes patterns appear, scripts appear, stories appear, and it's important to, keep journaling them because sometimes we forget, right? Especially what happened during your childhood. But if you can recall them, write them, revisit them, then you can craft compelling stories out of it.
I think, Ravi, I love the idea of story journaling. It's like a treasure trove of ideas for all of us. And what a transformation, Ravi, from there to who you are today. And on a lighter note, I've just got to ask something that crossed my mind. Did you have like a weird nickname in your childhood too that was in your story journal that's yet to come probably?
Quite a few, right? Especially when you're in a boys' school, you get quite a few nicknames. So Udda was a common one. Udda because my surname was Uduwela or is Uduwela. Then you have the Gullas, the Meccas, the Kakuluas. Sometimes you don't even remember the origins of these nicknames. I think Kakulua is crab. Crab because I used to have a wobbly walk,
Okay.
right? I think my friends picked it up and called me a crab or a Kakulua. And then even when I joined Toastmasters, in my initial years, people had given me feedback. Man, you're not walking on stage, you're wobbling on stage. So before you talk, learn how to walk. So that's my version of walk the talk.
Oh.
Yeah, so that was the story behind the Kakulua.
Something that I did not see coming, like the names that you would have got as nickname as in childhood. Right. So, Ravi, earlier you mentioned in one of your speeches, or most of your speeches are based on true incidents and authentic stories of your own self. So, how important do you think it is for us to speak on real life experiences? And do you think as speakers we have to always stick to true stories, or is it okay to be fictional sometimes?
I think authenticity is very important because when you speak, there are three connections at play, right? The speaker and the speech and the audience and the speaker. So it's a three-way connection, and sometimes the connection between you and the speech is at the highest when you're close to that story, when you're emotionally invested in that story. For that to happen, the stories have to be authentic, and you have to be very closely connected with that. If you make it up, I don't think. I mean, if you're a good actor, you can still pull it off, but you might not have the same impact or the emotional connection with that story, and it will kind of hinder your delivery because you can't bring out the passion and the emotion in your delivery when the story is not very authentic. Having said that, it doesn't mean that every word, every line has to be 100% authentic. For example, you can play around with let's say there's a character in your story and you don't want to reveal the actual name. Probably you can make up the name. Probably you can twist the dialogues a bit. For example, in my final speech, I said I landed in Hawaii for my honeymoon, but where I actually landed was Langkawi, which is an island of Malaysia. But then I thought, would people know this island? And it wasn't really important as to where I landed because the story was about parasailing. So parasailing was important and it was authentic, but not the destination. Because sometimes in a 7-minute speech, you can't have a lot of time in disclosing non-strategic details. So there you can play around a bit, but then still you remain true to the core of the story so that you can really bring in the emotions and you can relive that moment while you speak. So that's why I think authenticity is pretty important.
Well, rightly said. I think all of us Toastmasters would know how much authority do you get when you have that authentic speech and present your authentic self to the audience. And a little bit, didn't we know that he actually landed in Langkawi instead of Hawaii? All of us believed it. So you're pretty good actor. Oh, very good wordplay, Ravi. So having said that, again, going back to childhoods, you schooled in Trinity, Candy Boy, and I'm from Matale, so heads up there for all the hill capitals. How, I know like we come from Sri Lankan families and growing up, you say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a teacher. We always have ambitions. So did you have an ambition growing up? And if it was, what was it?
Well, in typical Sri Lanka, you don't have much choices, right? Your parents would say either become a doctor, engineer, lawyer, or probably an accountant, right? So we had only 3 or 4 choices growing up. So I thought engineer for some weird reason, probably to build, roads to walls to bridges to whatever. But I couldn't build anything. The dreams only collapsed. Couldn't be an engineer, but ended up being selected to computer science at the University of Colombo. So while doing computer science, there's something else that a lot of Sri Lankans used to do, whether you're a doctor, whether you're pursuing medicine or engineering. There's something called CIMA, right? CIMA. Everyone does it. Irrespective of what your core field is, you do it. So I also did it. And then after completing both, I had a choice to go through the IT route or go through the finance route. And again, for some weird reason, I chose to go through the finance route. So CIMA played a big role, yeah. Then went on to do an MBA later on.
Nice. A bit of a comparison right away. I was a chemistry graduate and I don't know why I started doing CIMA as well. So you were absolutely right with that, Ravi. Right. Now, I think a shift from want to build buildings and be a civil engineer to choose computer science, then to go into finance, that's quite a shift now. And now I know for a fact I'm not going to probably exclusively say how old you are if you don't want to.
Well, I said in 1996 I was 14 years old. So
do the math. Not good at it either. But now that we know who you are today, when I went to search onto your profile on LinkedIn, every year there was like an addition of titles. And when I say titles, it's big titles in the corporate world. And like I said earlier in his introduction, he's a Group Chief Strategy Officer. Now, for someone who was 14 years old in 1996, achieving this feat is this high, Ravi, for me. So how was it in the corporate world? Was it actually easy for you to step in there and win and be this way, the way you are today? Or did you actually have those tough, toxic bosses who we can't even ask a leave for, or have challenges during our starting stages in the corporate world?
My first boss was Mr. Samuel J. Selvan, a Toastmaster. I didn't know he was a Toastmaster back then. He's, I think, part of Vattala Toastmasters. Lovely gentleman. So I never had toxic bosses. My next boss was Mr. Kevin Pereira, again another wonderful person, not toxic at all. However, I had challenging roles. I think challenging roles are important for your growth. So I remember one of my first roles, I think it was my second role in the second year, operational auditing. So I remember traveling the width and depth of Sri Lanka doing sales audits, having tough conversations. Sometimes auditing is not easy, right? You're the most notorious person in the organization because you're supposed to find flaws in processes or sometimes in people and report higher up. So it's not easy. It was a challenging role. And after 5 years of corporate life, I was working at Nestle back then. I was offered another challenging role in India. As a different country, different culture, different ways of working. And to acclimatize was a bit of a challenge. I was sent for a 2-year assignment, but 2 became 3, 3 became 4, 4 became 5. And after 5 long years, I came back to Sri Lanka and I thought, wow, finally the most challenging role was done. And then I was sent to a remote village where our factory was located, Pannala. Again, another challenging role because you're cut off from, the civilization of Colombo and you go to the wilderness of Pannala. Again, a challenging role, but when you really complete those challenging roles and look back, those are the roles that really help shape you. Because oftentimes we like to be in our comfort zones, in our shelves, look for a cozy, cushy life, but you really get your hands dirty when you take on these challenging roles, and it really adds value in terms of your career progression, and it really adds value to your CV. So I think, I didn't have, toxic bosses, but challenging roles, but they were very, very growth oriented.
Jokes apart, Ravi, I think it's a very good lesson for youngsters who are stepping into the corporate world that like you rightly said, it's how much we get dirty, the more we learn. And yes, it adds on to our CV, but I personally also say you become a better, stronger, confident individual. And looking at you, it's a reflection of those words, I believe. So you talked about challenges and how it really helps us grow. So corporate world, stepping into all of this, I didn't hear you say anywhere about Toastmasters. Yes, your boss was a Toastmaster. So when did you exactly join Toastmasters and why?
So this happened in India. As I said, I worked there for 5 years. And after my first year in India, every year you have this moment of truth, right? Called the performance evaluation. You think you're doing great until you meet your boss at the performance evaluation. And sometimes those evaluations can be tougher than what you find in, in Toastmasters, right? So he said, Ravi, okay, you've been sent from Sri Lanka, you have potential, but you are not very visible enough. So what he really meant was I had the technical skills because I had done my degree, I had done my CIMA, I had completed my MBA. So the technical skills were in place. But what he said was to grow as a professional, as a leader, you need to have soft skills, leadership skills as well. So I didn't have, even the basic networking skills, stakeholder management skills. My presentations were below par. I had, ideas, I had knowledge, but I didn't have the capacity to share with conviction, which is required to grow in the corporate sphere. So he said, yes, you're not visible enough. You have to develop your visibility so that you can climb the corporate ladder. So back then, I took that feedback, but I really didn't know what I should do. So it's only through a friend of mine who I often mention in my speeches, Udita Guru, who introduced me to a club called Invictus Toastmasters Club in New Delhi. So that is where it all began. And after a year or so, I had developed my self-confidence. And I was able to take it back to the corporate life. My presentation skills became better. Stakeholder management skills became better because working in India required me to work very closely with Indians, Sri Lankans, Bangladeshis, Nepalis, the entire region. So communication skills played a big role. So that is how I began Toastmastering, or why I began Toastmastering.
Right. I honestly didn't know that you started Toastmasters back in India. Anyways, probably still districtated to a combination of India.
In fact, North India was part of a separate district. It was District 41,
Nice.
not 82.
Wonderful. But I think my next question was supposed to be, did Toastmasters actually make a noticeable impact in your corporate life? But I think you answered it already because it definitely did. Starting off from your KPIs to how 1.5 years later you gain self-confidence. Now,
I think, Rifka, just to, it's not only when you're in a corporate. Let's say you want to get into a corporate at an interview. You might have a great CV. You might have all the qualifications. Probably you have, 10 years of experience, 20 years of experience. But it all comes down to that moment where you got to communicate your experience to your prospective employer with conviction, and you got to impress your prospective employer, right? So their communication skills play a very important role. It's like those 5 to 7 minute speeches that we have. You probably have 5 to 7 minutes to impress. And I remember in certain interviews, you're being asked questions like, what was the biggest problem you solved in your previous job? Tell us how you added value. So the answer is like it's like structuring a speech. You talk about the problem, the impact, how it affected probably your growth or your profitability or your efficiency. You identify the problem, you find a solution. How did you implement it? How did you apply it? It's the same like a speech structure. So that structure, that development really helps you craft a compelling answer even at an interview, even before you get the job. So after you get the job, as I said, yes, presentation skills, networking skills, stakeholder management, the visibility that you create for yourself. So communication plays a very important role.
I think rightly said, Ravi. For me, when I started off with my journey from a science field to something that extremely not related to science, when I had to work in a corporate conglomerate again, I was so confident in the interview. I believe even if what the job was, I would be still able to present myself because I was so confident about I could communicate what I'm thinking. Effective communication is like what you said, 5 to 7 minute speech. I know what's the subject, what to craft, and how to put it. Now that we spoke about such serious things and how communication helped you in corporate life and impress and all of that, how did Toastmasters or communication actually help you to impress your significant other, Ravi? How did you meet her?
That's a very interesting question. So it happened officially through a marriage proposal, right? And marriage proposals sometimes are like interviews. Still, you got to convince not only the significant other, but their parents and whoever is there in that audience. So yeah, in a proposal also communication helps, but we met way before that. Like I used to play table tennis at school. She used to play table tennis at school.
Okay.
So we kind of knew each other. We hadn't spoken, but we knew each other. That is where we initially met, but nothing to do with marriage at that time.
Okay.
Because the real thing happened maybe 20 years after. And yes, even in that moment, communication helped to convince someone.
All right, we believe nothing happened 20 years before while playing table tennis, but 20 years after, through a marriage proposal, you definitely met that lucky, significant other. I think you've achieved so much, let's say, gone through all the challenges that anyone would actually go through in your age, achieved this feat in corporate world, have a lovely wife and a daughter. And now, shifting back, Ravi, what does success really mean to you? Do you think all that you've achieved so far is really your hard work? Or is it the good luck? Or is it all about timing?
I think it's a combination of all three factors that you mentioned. Hard work in any field is super important. If you don't put in the work, if you don't put in the effort, I think that will showcase in your results. So hard work is definitely something that I put in, especially during the last year or so. Sometimes what happens is you write a script and you settle with it. But hard work means you write a script, you practice, you get feedback, you refine, you practice, you get feedback. So it's a never-ending cycle that you've got to wheel. A lot of times people settle. They don't put in the hard work and say, okay, I'm done. This is it. I want to finish off my script and then practice but you don't do the hard work in refining, and that applies to any field in life. You got to keep at it and consistently put that hard work. Hard work for a short period of time is also insufficient. I think the beauty is hard work over a period of time, and then the consistency and the timing that you mentioned becomes really important, because we live in an era where we think everything will happen overnight. Whether it's all about instant, instant food, instant coffee, everything is instant. But as they say, the best food is slowly cooked and the best coffee is slowly brewed, right? So it takes time. So yes, hard work, timing, and then you got to give it some time. And sometimes quality matters over quantity. Even in Toastmasters, I've seen some people, they want to swift through it and become a DTM fast, complete this manual, that manual very fast. It's all quantity based. But what is really important is to extract the best out of it, which is kind of qualitative and hard work, right? Sometimes nowadays, even if you say, tell a member, probably you might have to repeat the speech, they would get really offended because they are not willing to put in that hard work and get the best out of it. So hard work, timing, consistency, these are all very important aspects.
Wonderfully worded, Ravi. I think I'm going to take that home. Slowly cooked food are the best. And again, a wonderful expression of how much quantity is actually not the matter. It's all about the quality work that we do. Having said that, Ravi, throughout this journey of you probably putting your hard work, going to the person that you want to review things with, redefining it, and then trying it again and going back, this whole circle of hard work and changes. Was there any redefining moments in your Toastmasters journey? Some moment that actually changed everything? Was there stuff like moments like that?
I think in my case, there were many, defining moments. I think every speech added value. Yeah, for me, it was an incremental journey, a gradual progression. I know nowadays people look for exponential change, right? You want to explode into orbit all of a sudden. But for me, it was gradual, incremental, and every step of the way really added value for me. But if I were to pick up one or two moments, probably a couple of years ago, I was under the impression as a speaker, it's all about content and delivery that will get you there. So I met someone who said, "No, you win or you lose in your mind," and that gent really helped me prepare my mind to achieve bigger things. It could be a simple breathing exercise. It could be practicing gratefulness, visualization. I think that was a super mind technique that I was introduced to by this gent. And he actually made me picture that big moment. Eh, You know, it was just amazing. He used to say, "Okay, now you're on backstage. The curtains are about to open. You're getting on that world championship stage. Who do you see in the audience?" And I was like, I didn't know anyone because it's a foreign audience. But no, tell me, who do you see in the audience? And then I had to really think, and I brought out two names. I thought, okay, Mr. Balaraj would be there as the former international president. And I also mentioned Mr. Yusuf's name because he was alive during that time. But through these techniques, what I realized was he was making me live that moment. So when I actually went on stage this year, I realized that, okay, I'm there physically for a moment that I was preparing mentally for about 2 years. So that transition became more seamless because of that visualization or living that moment. Because it's very easy to have a dream. What's difficult is to live a dream. So those mind techniques sometimes really help. So yeah, that was a defining moment. Um, but as I said, mostly it has been gradual progression for me.
Wonderful. I was just going to ask how it was for you backstage. World Championship Finals, Ravi. It's the Toastmasters. Was this also the first time that you went to a convention in person?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that couldn't be any better, right? You're back there. Probably these were videos that we saw on YouTube. Champions who prepped, and for once, after all these years of hard work, you were behind that curtains. And I still remember during Ovation, while all your speeches were over, and we at the audience were looking at, I'm sure the audience will agree with me, who's going to win it. We had two people in mind. And both of you are people who've been working for this title to be the District 82 champion for over, I know you both have been topping it for the past 4 years, my 4 years in Toastmasters. So that definitely was not an immediate, instant, exponential growth, but it definitely was a gradual, well-deserving success, I believe, Ravi. And I just felt like when you said Toastmaster Balraj, distinguished Toastmaster Balraj in the audience, I could just picture you saying it because that's so nice, visualizing and knowing who your audience is and how.
And I actually saw him.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I actually saw him. Unfortunately, Mr. DTM Yusuf is no more. But yes, he's also someone who really helped me in my journey, identifying potential and giving me direction.
And I'm sure that he's going to be proud of what you've done to us, all of us at District 82. And I was very sure that everyone at that convention, Ravi, you wouldn't know, it was midnight, literally like 2 a.m., 1 a.m. I can see Zoom chat screaming and cheering for you for the District 82. I mean, representing District 82 because we were all watching the semi-finals. No matter which club, which part of Sri Lanka, they were right there. So Ravi, all this attention that you got, the support and love from us, and also many others from the entire world, was it at any point an added pressure to you? Because semi-finals, there you go, you went with a spot-on speech, did it in style, and then I'm not sure if you believed you're going to win it and go to the finals, but when that happened, so much attention towards you, did this attention at any point act for you like a pressure?
Certainly, there was pressure. I think handling pressure has a lot to do with what you keep telling yourself, the internal dialogue that you have. If you keep telling yourself, okay, this is a contest, I must go there to win, I have to win, then you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself. But if you go with the mindset of, okay, I'm here to share my story with the world, I have a story within, it's my story, I want to share it with a global audience, and that puts you at ease. And also, um, you have to be yourself on stage, be yourself and have fun on stage. So if these are the things that you're telling yourself, I think it kind of helps you relieve that pressure that you feel within. So it's the self talk, it's the internal dialogue that really helps you manage those situations.
That's such a great mindset, Ravi, because to not focus on the pressure, to not focus on the difficult times, but also to just pick yourself and be yourself. I think that's a very good takeaway for all of us today. And having said that, when you set off from Sri Lanka, went to the convention, and just when you got to know that you're stepping into the finals, I'm sure it meant the world to you, for someone who has dreamt, visualized this whole process. And then when you did not get placed in the finals, was it a heartbreak? Did you consider it as a failure at any point? And let's just talk about failures. At any point, what are the lessons that failures had taught you?
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to have placed in that final, but that is how competition is. Sometimes you win, sometimes you fall short. And in any journey, you spend most of the time failing, right? In the journey, before you succeed, there are many years or many months or many competitions that you fall short, that you fail. But still, you got to pull your socks and keep going. And most importantly, learn the lesson as to, got to keep asking yourself, why did I fall short? Probably you might not have the answer. Probably someone who was in the audience might have the answer. Sometimes your mentor might have the answer. So you take that feedback, just like that cycle, you incorporate that feedback and come back stronger the year after. Because when you fail, it's very easy to quit. But what matters is to keep going, and you can eventually succeed. So it's a journey, and failure is part of it, and that is where you spend most of the time. And if you want to win, you should never be afraid to lose. So that is what I think.
Great. Says a champion, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Ravi, this has been very inspiring. Long conversation, I believe, for about 30 odd minutes. So I thought it's time to dive into a most interesting part of this entire podcast for myself, to shake things up a little bit. So we're going to have a rapid fire segment. If you do not know what it means, the rules are very simple, Ravi. You've got to answer this set of questions that I'm going to ask you very quickly without overthinking. Are you ready?
I hope so. Let's see.
All right. So let's set the times up. First question. One thing people misunderstand about you.
I speak less, so they think I'm proud.
Well, okay, I did not.
But Yoga always say, my good friend Yoga says, Ravi is a man of few words. So, although I'm a Toastmaster, I speak a bit less. So some people misinterpret as being proud or arrogant. Yeah.
Well, first impression is not the best impression for some people sometimes. Second question, Ravi. If you could switch lives with someone for a day, who would it be?
I would say Barack Obama. I just love the way he speaks, and he was one of my biggest inspirations when I started public speaking. And also, his life story is just amazing. From a poor boy in Kenya to the world's most powerful position, that transformation, that journey is amazing. But more than that, the way he speaks, mind blowing.
Agreed. A wonderful public speaker indeed. Next, what's the weirdest thing that you've ever eaten? Weirdest thing that you've ever eaten?
Chicken.
Chicken?
I don't eat chicken, but sometimes what happens is you're given something and you don't know what it is or what is inside. You eat and then you realize that's the wrong animal that you ate.
Well, disclaimer to every chicken lovers out there.
Yeah, sorry.
Weirdest thing. All right, no worries. What's the first thing you do when you wake up?
Plan the day.
Plan the day. Not take the phone. No?
You switch off the alarm.
Okay. Next question. Dream job, other than that you're doing right now, maybe. What's your dream job?
To become a CEO.
Wonderful. Wishes to your way, Ravi. Next question. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Sri Lanka.
Proud Sri Lankan. What's the most rebellious thing you've ever done?
Oh, throwing chalk at a teacher at school and being kicked in the back.
Well, Ravi is no excuse then, right? Describe yourself in 3 words.
Soft spoken, yet a speaker, procrastinator.
Procrastinator. Thank you, Ravi. Champion himself. Right. Worst habit that you're trying to break.
Procrastination.
Okay, did I?
I spend a lot of time thinking, not acting. I kind of got rid of that in the recent past, but still I spend a lot of time doing that.
Nice. What's the weirdest thing that you Googled?
I Google a lot of conspiracy theories.
Conspiracy theories. All right. Favorite book?
I don't read much. How to win friends and influence people.
What's one word to describe your Toastmasters journey?
Amazing.
Yes. Tea or coffee lover?
Tea.
Tea. Yay. Okay. And final rapid fire question, Ravi. The best compliment you've ever received?
Best compliment ever received. Not proud. I'm looking for the word, man.
That's okay.
Humble.
Humble.
The exact opposite of what I portray to be.
Nice. All right, Ravi. So just to keep the fun going, I have another round, a rapid question set, where I'm going to tell you a word and you can tell me anything that comes to your mind. Word association. Ready? Now it's going to be quick. Success.
Failure.
Sri Lanka.
Paradise.
Inspiration.
Public speaking.
Speech.
Therapy.
Leadership.
Servant leadership.
Ex-girlfriends.
None.
Nervousness.
Manage.
Lotus.
Tower.
Final question, Ravi. Podcast.
Let's finish.
Yes, you're right. That brings us to the wrapping up of this wonderful session, Ravi. But before we move on to the final question that I have for the audience and for yourself today, this has been such a blast. And I want to take a moment to share something very personal. When I joined Toastmasters back in 2020, back in a small hometown called Matale, Ravi Uduwela was a name that's synonymous with inspiring speeches because you were from one of the sister clubs, Hill Capital, back then. And fast forward 2 years, I think out of surprise, you were my co-host for Ovation 2023. It was day 3 morning and I realized Ravi is my co-host. And then 2024, here we are doing the D82 podcast, first debut session. And Ravi, I have to say this, your growth has been phenomenal. And someone who well deserved this growth and this success. So wishes you, Ravi, because people like you are really inspiring. When I say inspiring, I think any one of us would agree. And you are an epitome of Ravi Uduwela. Like, this name is going to stand tall in District 82. And I am so proud and honored and privileged to have interviewed you today. So one final note to the audience out there, any newbies, freshers, Toastmasters, non-Toastmasters, what do you have to say for anyone out there, probably just starting off their lives?
Have goals in life. At any given moment, there should be at least 2-3 things that you're chasing behind. So set your self targets, goals, and take action. That's very important. So life is like a race, right? You're supposed to get set and go. And most of us are in the get set mode where we never go because the journey looks daunting, fearful, scary, and we are stuck at the same place. So taking action, going the distance are very important things. And I think we should also remember that there's a better version which resides within you, and our life's purpose should be to discover that. So it's through the people you meet, it's through the experiences that you step into in life that you discover that better version. So keep working towards that, and I'm sure the best within you is yet to be seen.
Thank you so much, Ravi. It has been a wonderful, wonderful time on a Sunday morning that we discussed such thoughtful, inspiring, and fun stuff from you. So, for all those who joined us at the first episode of D82 podcast, thank you so much. I'm pretty sure that you had one hell of a ride with such thought provoking answers from our champion himself. So, this is Rifka signing off with the first debut session of D82 podcast. So keep discovering yourself and do not stay in the set go. Keep going and see you soon.